Hello, everyone, and welcome to the M8-ing podcast, the podcast where two mates openly talk about their experiences through life and parenthood. Steve, what are we talking about today, mate?
What are we talking about today? I thought it would be a really nice little follow-on from the last session to talk about birthing stories of our kids, because it's something that sort of, in a weird way, everyone's kind of, well, not everyone, that's true, that's not true, but a large portion of people generally like to talk about when they kind of first have kids, or how was the birth, etc. Some are horrendous, some go really well, and it's just something we thought we would share.
There is a question that always springs to mind when people talk about birthing stories, and typically you're right, people just roll over it, but it's always, did you look?
Yeah,
it always springs to mind. Did you look? Hell no.
Did you look into the eye of Sauron? Like that is it.
Did you?
Yeah, I couldn't not look. I had to. Like, when it's like, yeah, you just, like a car accident, you kind of can't look away. Like, God, I was just intrigued.
Don't say that.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
Charlotte
I wasn't standing. Yeah, no. I wasn't like standing away from her at the end of the bed, but I peered around, like, and I was just like, I gotta do a selfie with this thing. No, I was just like, I've got. No, I had to. I don't know. It was interesting. I did see the head part. Literally, the cliche is I could see the head. Like, I did see it. I mean, every time I blink, I see it. Like, I can't look away.
That's mad. I understand why people do it, and obviously, like, people want to fully embrace the whole birthing situation. It's like the whole umbilical cord situation as well. Do you want to cut that? I just no. I want to make sure my partner's okay. I want to make sure my baby's okay. And then I want to go home with good memories.
Yeah, I'm barely qualified for my own job, and you want me to help with yours with the whole gutting of the cord? No, I'm fine. I
don't think there's much chance of going wrong with that, though.
Okay, admittedly, I don't have the stats, but I imagine it's low if there are problems. But when you're shaking like a shitting dog, like, it's the last thing you really want to do.
Cut a finger off by accident or something.
Yeah, you just cut the doctor's arm off. Sorry, I panicked.
Is this amount of blood normal? Yeah. Anyway, sorry, we went off on a bit of a tangent. No,
it's cool. No, I mean, it's cool, because I have a little point on the amount of blood later, just to leave a little teaser of the story. Should I start? Should I just start?
Yeah, go for it, buddy. Go for it. Please share.
Okay, so lovely. Well, I won't start too early, but so I think we're about 3 weeks out from our due date, and Charlotte, I think was not feeling great. And I'm going to caveat this whole story before I tell it, by the way, that I've told Charlotte I'm telling her this story, and she's like, I will do a reaction video to this to see how much of it you get wrong. So I can't wait for her to
just get her on the show, mate.
Sorry?
We'll get her on the show.
Yeah.
To talk about it. Yeah, openly just say, Steve, none of that was true. No, none of that was right.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway.
Unless it was good. Unless it was good stuff.
No, so we went in, had a doctor's appointment. She wasn't feeling great. It turns out she had preeclampsia, which I believe is to do with high blood pressure. So it's dangerous to the baby.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's I think it's fairly common. It's not like totally irregular, but it's I believe it's to do with high blood pressure. Maybe I can Google that in a minute. But either way, it's not great, and we were strongly advised to induce early. So it would mean Charlotte would have to go in there and then. So initially it was just like, oh, we have a bag packed at home, but suddenly it's like, on the day, you're staying in now and we're inducing you. We were like, oh God, this is happening. So Charlotte stayed in the hospital. I went home. She was induced around midnight, and around 7 a.m. she started feeling a bit I can feel something. I'm starting to feel a bit achy. And bear in mind, I was at home because it was during the COVID times, so I couldn't stay overnight with her. So
was she awake? So you went at 12 a.m.?
No, we went in earlier than that. It was around like late afternoon, I believe. And then it was basically like I had to go home. I think I stayed fairly late, but I had to go home because it was COVID times, and you're not allowed to stay overnight. I think past 9, I think it was.
Yeah.
Even if you're being induced, which is lovely. So yeah, she was induced around 12. Started feeling achy. I don't think she slept at all that night. Whilst I was sound asleep at home, because from what I understand, like when you're induced, it could still take days. Like it isn't. It's not like it just falls out afterwards.
Ooh.
So yeah. So a few hours later, what was the rough timeline there? I think she started feeling proper contractions around like 9ish, and that's sort of when I came in. And when I came in, she was like on the bouncing ball. This hurts, hooked up to a monitor. Apparently the monitor is there just to sort of monitor the baby and everything, but I called it the pain monitor because there's some number on there that the higher it goes, the heavier the contraction is. And I couldn't not look at it. I was just like, oh my God, it's at 90. I don't know what the top one was, but 90 sounds high.
You can also probably tell by how much Charlotte is probably wincing and screaming.
So the thing is, right, so we were in the antenatal ward, so it's like there's loads of other women around and they're not making any noises, but Charlotte is starting to like really go for it. And Charlotte's hard as nails. Like she has a higher pain threshold than I do, and she is I imagine if someone machine gunned a buffalo, it's that kind of noise. I'm not going to do an impression of it, but it was quite like she was.
Please do.
She was. Imagine that. I can't wait for her to punch me after this. But yeah, she was clearly in pain. So and no one else was making this noise. So I'm like, I don't think this is right. So I went and got the midwives who, I bet they have panicky husbands going up to them all the time, going, "Oh no, this is different.
Like, is this normal? Is this normal? Shit. And they're like, yes,
get away from me, you specky twat. Like this is absolutely normal." But they did come over and they checked her out, and she was like 3 centimeters dilated. So it's like nothing. Like I think you have to get 10 for them to consider it. Oh, you need to go check. So Charlotte was like, "You've got to be effing kidding me! Like this is seriously painful." So then, and I think they offered her epidural at the time, and she was like, "No." 10 minutes go by, and she's like, "I need the epidural, like now." Like,
does she have? Because they. And again, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt your story, but there's a drug that's obviously stronger than Is it pethidine? Pethidine? Something like that.
Someone Google it.
It's a drug that's basically stronger than they start with paracetamol for that.
No. They start with like Gasanel, whatever it is, and then pethidine rings a bell. To be fair, I think someone's going to be shouting at us whilst listening to this, going, "It's obviously this." But I believe an epidural is the strongest, where it sort of almost cuts off sensitivity to the lower body, right? The nerve. And I know Shah didn't really want to do that, and I think it's not really typically advised because you need to try and push naturally.
To sign a waiver as well.
Yeah, I mean, as you can tell, I'm not a doctor, so some of this information might not be 100% accurate. But either way, Charlotte, 5 minutes there, is like, "I need the epidural now. This really hurts too much." I then went and, again, irritated the midwife from Shaw was looking at me like, "Is it really happening like this soon afterwards?" They then came and checked, and I chose the opportune moment to go to the toilet. I was like, only 3 centimeters had gone 5 minutes ago. This is fine. So I then went, "Sure, I'm just gonna go to the toilet." And so I went, and literally 2 minutes later, this nurse bowls into the toilet. I have my pants around my ankles, and she's like, "If you don't leave now, you're going to miss the birth of your child." And I'm not going to lie, I don't even remember wiping. I think I just stood up and then went, "Oh my God."
Just like trousers around your ankles.
No, I did pull my pants up. I'm not an animal. And yeah, I remember sprinting through the hospital, and all I see is Charlotte being wheeled out it's like a SWAT team of people, like on all fours, grunting. I'm running after her, doing my belt up. Literally, it's actually a joke. Like, what a laughable husband
Oh,
is supposed
no.
to be. So yeah, that happened, and then we go into the room. We've already talked about, yes, I did have a look. I felt like I needed to, but she was like, it was so, it's such a true emotional moment, right? You see your partner in like genuine agony, but she was like such a rock star. Like, she absolutely smashed it. And you see all these like movies where they're lying on their back, like, I think you're supposed to be on all fours. That's apparently the more safe way of doing it these days. So Charlotte's on all fours. And I think by that time she was having gas and air.
On all fours?
Yeah, on all fours.
I've never seen that.
That's
or heard
weird.
it.
We need something else we need to Google. We need to add that to the Google list. But yeah, 100%.
I mean, it would make sense because like gravity and stuff. And you look at like other mammals.
So that's apparently it. Yeah,
it's like they all give birth on all fours.
Yeah,
but I've never
seen it like you should have seen.
I've never seen that. I need to see that.
Of all the births I've seen.
Have you got any videos?
Yeah. Of course I do. I've got a library. That's a niche porn
of other people.
Yeah,
not sure.
Just go and bowl into hospitals.
Oh. Is that why you're in the toilet?
Oh, shut up! That was horrible. Oh god. Anyway, back to serious. I was actually being serious then about how brilliant she was. Anyway, she
can't stop thinking. Can't stop thinking.
You're gonna have to stop thinking about it. Oh god. Oh dear. Damaged your vision of Charlotte for life. Anyway, so the birth happened. But then and then you see him, and like I wasn't like blubbing. Like, I think lots of people like almost see it as their duty to cry. I'm like, I did shed like a tear, but it was more like of relief that everything was fine. And like you could hear him crying. There was none of that kind of, oh God, is he alive sort of thing.
I think a lot of people cry because of like their adrenaline, right? Like you see your partner in pain. Do you get I get in when I remember seeing Sam, I was getting, because she was in so much pain, I was getting like the shakes where I was like, I didn't know what to, like, for the first time in your life, you just don't know what to do because you can't physically go, like, you know what's hurting, you know what's causing the pain. You can't be like, I can take that pain away if you'll do something. You just sit there and be like, completely helpless. It's like one of the first times in your life.
It goes against all your natural instincts as a bloke, doesn't it? Because you want to sort of like your primal instincts of, I've got to protect her, and you can't do jack. And the irony is, obviously, you are a spare part, like, but you being there for them makes a massive, massive, massive difference. Like, if I wasn't there,
nearly weren't.
I think she'd be. Sorry.
I said you nearly weren't.
Yeah, I did. So you're like, oh, can't you just give it 10 minutes? I'm trying to park my breakfast. I don't think that's a particularly good. We
said we weren't going to give advice on this podcast, but one bit of advice we can give is be there.
But
we'll try to be there as much as possible.
I agree. It's preferred if you are there. I think is the safe bet, right? So anyway, that all happens, and then I've got Oscar. And it's skin contact, and it's great. But then they're pulling out the placenta afterwards, not to go too graphic. And essentially, it's broken apart.
So it's the sac, right? It's the sac that the baby's in.
Yeah, the sac.
Yeah. How else do you describe it?
I don't
Balloon.
Know. Yeah.
Lovely.
Let's not think of other synonyms for it. So anyway, it basically, and I didn't even know this was a thing. They were pulling it, and it just basically broke apart. And Charlotte was losing blood like at an aggressive rate. She lost 2.2 liters of blood, which I think
how much that is.
Okay, so the human body apparently has around just over 3, but that goes up by 50% when you're pregnant. So it's like 5 liters. So she lost nearly half her blood. And I know, so I've heard stories of people who lose more. I'm amazed she didn't need like a transfusion or something like that, like savage. And there were some particularly gross moments where they're literally just like, you just see doctors covered in blood pulling away at her, and then I just see this doctor press down on her stomach and just it was, and she's like goofed out,
the good old medical technique.
Oh yeah, they're like, yeah, it's like a cartoon where it's like, and like again, there's probably more technique to it than pressing down on a whoopee cushion, but like that is how it looked. And they then had to wheel her away, and I'm presented with this form saying, basically, you need to sign off that we need to do surgery on your wife now, and if these are the potential complications that could happen if it goes wrong. So I've got Oscar there, newborn, Charlotte being wheeled away, having to go into major surgery, and I'm just like, this is fun.
I didn't know that. I knew that she had. I knew that it was like. I remember you briefly telling me the story around, like her placenta bit. I didn't know she lost a lot of blood.
Yeah. To be fair,
I didn't know she had to have
nor
surgery.
Did I either. Really. It was only when I started prepping her that this is what I was going to discuss, and I was like, Jesus.
Like, was she out of it when you did you? Because did you have to say this is what's happening, Charlotte? Like, and she was all lightheaded, or was she completely compos mentis?
I think she wasn't totally like all there, but for there and then she was all right. And I think she did. I think the midwife, who was brilliant, to be fair, the team there were amazing. And yeah, so she was. It was explained to her, but I think, and again, I wasn't in the room when they did what they needed to do, but apparently she passed out in there and was just like out of it, vomited, like was just like her body was just like in a right state. And when she came, for sure. And she came back in. I couldn't even tell you how long it was. 2 hours, 3 hours, something like that. They wheeled her back in, and I'm in the room on my own with Oscar, and he's just there lying there like that, and I'm there like, this is weird, like really silent. It's like the calm after the storm. Like,
I would have made sure the midwife was like there the whole time, right?
Oh god,
like
I think they popped in every 20 minutes. Like, you okay? I'm like, I think so. Like, no, I don't know anymore. So yeah, that's really it. And
that's horrible. That's horrible. Like, hugely horrible for her, right? But then you think about that. Like, that's got to be the longest. I mean, 2 hours is a long bloody time anyway, right? But you were there, thrown in the deep end with your newborn. Yes, there's people around that can help and stuff, but you've got this new life in front of you, and you're like, my wife's been wheeled away. I don't know. I've signed some pretty scary forms. It's in your head you're probably thinking something might not go wrong, but probably not. She's in a good place, but then all of these thoughts in your head. Oh, the thought of that, but then the thing is, so I didn't know that, and again, definitely timelines. I didn't know, like, she got whisked away for a couple of hours, and you were there just with this newborn alone. The thought of that is horrible, right?
Yeah,
it's so scary.
And I mean, the thing is, it's like there's people that will look at that scenario and go, "Oh, you should be stronger for your wife," blah blah blah. But you're just like, you can't kind of put yourself in that situation. It's so subjective how you'd feel. I did like, I felt I was as strong as I could have been. Like, I wasn't weeping in the corner, but like, you're shaken up. Like, of course you are. And yeah, I was so relieved when Charlotte came back in, and she seemed fine. She was shivering because apparently that's like a result of some of the drugs she was taking. So she was like trembling a bit. But I think then we were told everything's cool, crack on. I think she had a rough night that night for sure, because that's obviously when you start the fun. That's when you start trying to breastfeed and all this sort of stuff. And
some places are pretty forceful.
Yeah.
We've had two experiences, being one where the midwife's pretty good.
And they, I think, just after he was born, they were like, "So do you want to change the nappy?" And they put the nappy in front of me. I went, I've no idea what to do. Literally, I have no idea what to do. So they had to show me and do it for me. Like, I'm starting to think,
should I be changing watermelons?
Yeah, should I have YouTubed that and done that before? I did NCT and we did nothing like that. So, like, maybe that's something that should be added to the syllabus. But then I had to go home, but they let me stay late during COVID times. So I got home around 11:30. And I genuinely went and sat on the sofa in the dark and cried for about 20 minutes because the emotion of the entire day just absolutely got to me. And like, when you
Oh,
just
mate.
leave this storm behind you, and like you want to be there as well. Like you want to be there. And any other time on planet Earth, you would have been allowed to go there to stay overnight, but you weren't. So you had to be torn away from your family. I mean, don't get me wrong, I had a glorious sleep, but whilst Charlotte was like, I don't think she got 5 minutes sleep at all.
Because I would imagine, was she in a room with like other people and other babies and stuff, right?
No.
She's in her own room.
I'm quite sure she's in her own room.
I guess because of complications, if she had surgery, they might put her in her own room.
Quite sure, because I think I remember even saying I'd happily pay for one if that's like how it works. Like, because you can pay for private rooms, but yeah, you can.
Can you?
Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah.
Like just putting like a private one.
Not a bribe.
It sounds it. I don't think they would. I don't think they could do that. I know you could be like, you can have like private, like arrangements for when you like want to go to and have a baby and stuff. I think I didn't know that you could pay to have a private room.
I'm quite sure. Sunny, maybe it depends on the hospital.
Because someone took your money, didn't they?
Yeah,
someone's like taking a bribe at the hospital. Yeah, private room. Yeah, £1,000. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, sorry, run out, and you're like, oh, all right, thanks. But that's really the whole thing, man. And then again, like I was sharing some stats with you before we started recording, and according to the World Health Organization, 90 to 95% of world births are considered normal. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. What the hell's normal for a start? Like,
would yours be considered normal?
I couldn't tell you. I would imagine
that's a very misleading statistic.
Yeah,
that's very misleading.
I would imagine if the baby comes out and it's alive or doesn't need to go into intensive care, maybe everything under that is considered normal. Because again, and it's like there's nothing worse than saying, well, I don't know anyone who has that, but I genuinely couldn't tell you one person who went into labour, everything was by the book, and they left. Like every single person has their own kind of subjective story and subjective feeling, and to sort of brush it under the carpet and say, "Oh, it's normal." Yeah, you're just like, well. And again, like
where's the cut-off point?
I would have loved it if they were more transparent in NCT, saying this is the sort of stuff that can really happen. And you need to be mentally prepped for it. And we did all these, like, what did we do? We did the Positive Birth Company and stuff like that, where it's like, you have to be zen and calm and it's feelings over. And you're just like...
Just breathe.
Yeah.
Just breathe.
Oh, God, didn't think about breathing. Yeah. Oh, what what a groundbreaking phenomenon. So
only Charlotte remembered to breathe during her pregnancy.
Yeah, it's everything would have been great for not breathing.
There's a lot of like meditation sort of breathing exercises and stuff like that helps, but when people try to tell you to do that when you've experienced something that's like medically nothing to do with, say the baby got stuck, or in Charlotte's situation or whatever like that no amount of breathing is ever going to help you. It might help with the pain prior to that, and that's fine, but it's not going to help with any of the sort of complications and stuff. I think it's all a bit mad.
Seemingly not, yeah. And again, like 1 in 3 seemingly, or just around 30% of babies are born with cesarean, as per several websites, including NHS. So it's like, that doesn't say to me that 95% are normal. That says that complications are seen. And
this is again, that's another statistic, right? It's like, and I don't want this podcast to be like full about statistics, but you're absolutely right. It's 1 in 3 cesareans, yes, but what's the split between planned? Because a load of people plan to have planned C-sections, and then what's the percentage of that is complications? You mentioned something, right, when you went to NCT, and this is partly why I think this podcast is hopefully quite useful, not to scare people or put anyone off, but we had a similar sort of story, right? To some degree, and we were never ever prepped for what if something doesn't go according to plan. And I thought that would be really helpful for me if I had someone going, by the way, there is a chance with any pregnancy that this could happen. Worst case scenario, we've got a solid team of surgeons and doctors that are there on call to look after. And I'd be like, actually, yes, that is a little bit scary, the thought of it, but knowing that you're reassured that you've got those people on standby should shit hit the fan would actually put me at ease a little bit. I look back and if I had that, I'd be a bit like, so our story was, again, you know it to some degree, and I'm happy to go into detail about it. But we had something quite similar. And me personally, I was like, I have no idea what is going on. I don't know what to do. I feel helpless. I don't know who's coming. There's an hour wait for an anaesthetist, the person that does the epidural, all of these things, an hour wait while she's in complications and stuff. And you're like, holy shit, what's happening? What is going on? But if you want, I can go into the sort of full detail of the birthing story if you're done.
Yep, I'm all done. Ready to rock and roll. Please do go ahead.
Right, I did, just so you're aware, I have pretty much mentally blocked this memory. So
oh, God.
I either might forget some details or I'm going to end up bawling my eyes out. So I'll try not to. So you obviously, I know with Zach's birth, there was a couple of complications. So I'll start throughout the pregnancy. Sam was, I think, 42 weeks. She went over 2 weeks before she got induced. So I don't. What's max term? 40 or 39 or something like that. I can't. I don't know. She was about 42 weeks or something. Someone's going to correct me, or she might correct me, or whatever. Right? I know she was 2 weeks over what her due date was. It was actually a little bit more than that. Just then she got induced, and the whole time her pregnancy was probably the best pregnancy you'd ever like. She was still. I remember her mowing the lawn around 41 weeks pregnant.
Absolute
sunny,
machine.
smiling.
Love that.
She was so good throughout the pregnancy. And again, credit to her. Sorry. And we went 2 weeks over, and it finally got to a stage where we had an induction date, and we went into the hospital, and this is where everything just like, it was one thing after another. So we got induced. Again, I don't have the timelines. I'm not that well prepped. But I know when we went in, I think we went in like 7 a.m. in the morning, something first thing in the morning. But when we first started getting seen by the doctors, I think it was around 12-ish, thereabouts. And different hospitals have different practices for inductions. We didn't know this, but I did after my second child. And the first hospital that we went to with our son, there's different things that they start off with. So, for example, the hospital where we had induction, we had 2 inductions, one with IV and one was with IVs. They use the balloons where they basically put a balloon in and pump it full of water, I think, to try and expand the cervix. Again, I might be completely wrong about that. I'm pretty sure. And then they leave that in there. They leave that in there to try and let nature, force nature to start doing its work. With Zach, they use this thing called a pessary, which I think is something that goes inside near the cervix and releases a chemical and a hormone or whatever.
Yeah, that's what was used for Charlotte.
Triggers your body. Yeah. So the other hospital, they don't do that because of effects that it can have on the body. I've got to stop moving my hand because it's making my camera go in and out. So Sam had that, and Sam went from 0 to something mad, like a stupid amount of contractions, off the scale. I remember it was constant, and they kept coming in going, that's not right, that's not right. So after about a good couple of hours of Sam being in full-on agony, they had to take it off her. And then they had to give her, I believe they had to give her an injection to stop the contractions, like a blocker.
Jesus.
She then, the next stage after that, if the pessary doesn't work, because she was contracting super hard, but she was not dilated at all. She was just, it was all the way at the back. So it wasn't doing it. It was just causing her damage and pain. So they took her off it. The next stage after that is, I think it's something called, a gel they use.
Yeah.
So they use a gel.
Yeah.
If the pessary doesn't work, but they were out of stock the whole hospital was out of stock of the gel. So they put us straight onto a drip. And bearing in mind, this is we're talking this is probably about 15 hours gone already throughout the day, because it's just up and down, up and down. You know what it's like, but it's a slow, long burning process. So after that, she got put on the drip. And they always say the drip is the most intense, and basically it will get everything moving and going, but it is quite harsh, quite painful. So I remember she was on that for ages, and she was on paracetamol, gas and air, pethidine. I'll come back to that one. Pethidine makes sure it's
no, because it's good you brought it, because I googled it in the background, and this is an injection of a medicine into your thigh or buttock to relieve pain during labour.
Yeah, they put it to her bum, I think. So she was on pethidine, and it was making her like in and out of consciousness. You're like,
oh God.
Like every now and again, and you sort of like but she was I remember so vividly, she was again similar to you, like similar to the story about Charlotte, just like screaming, but then she'd be like and then she'd be like screaming and then so she was in and out for ages. Then it got too intense that she went onto an epidural.
Yeah,
she didn't want an epidural. Obviously, there's potential complications with epidural. It's a little bit more risky because it's injected into the spine. But we had to wait an hour. Like at this stage, Sam is, and I kid you not, Sam was grabbing me, looking at me, and saying, "Please, just make it stop." And I'm there going, "The fuck do I do?" And I remember turning to the midwife, going, "Please, just do something, please. There must be." She was like, "I can't do anything. We have to wait for the anaesthetist. We just have to wait." I said, "Look at her." And she was all like, and then screaming again. So I remember just being completely useless. And
did you go to the toilet? You were there, so that's good. That's awful.
Present, Steve. Yeah. But I remember turning around to the midwife, and I remember getting pretty, and again, like you're going to see this a lot of time, but like I got pretty shitty with the midwife because she wasn't reassuring me that everything was fine. It was like I was being a problem when Sam was in absolute agony, and then she was like crying for help. You know, I don't know if like, you know, when someone breaks when they're in pain. I don't know if you've ever seen it, right? They're tensing and tensing and tensing,
yeah,
and they're fighting it, and you just see everything drop, and they're like, "Just stop it, please." And like the desperation, right? It was that, and I went, "Oh God!" Like she's been fighting this the whole time, and it was just like she's done. She was like, "I don't want to do this anymore." And again, never experienced birth before, so I don't know what to experience. I don't know if this is normal, but I'm like, pretty sure this is normal. She's on every drug possible. So I had to sign a waiver. Anaesthetist came around an hour later, and the process just started taking place. But she still wasn't fully dilated at the stage. She was still probably, I would say, like 4 centimeters or something, 5 centimeters even. And this is at this stage, it had been about 24 hours solid. 24 hours, longer, about 27 hours, because the whole process, I remember after the whole thing happened, it was 34 hours, and me and Sam hadn't slept within 34 hours, because that's when the process started to...
That's because her active labour was that long.
34 hours of active labour. That's her pushing to my son. Her being on the drip, I think, when they were being on the drip. It was a long ass process. We were in hospital. Well, she was in hospital a lot longer. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, there was, and then it got to a stage where I remember saying they had problems trying to pop her water. They had to get multiple people in to try and do it. And you're like, what is this? This is it's like a comedy sketch. These are the people that you're meant to trust, and they like, you hear people popping their waters all the time, and they talk about it like it's nothing, but they couldn't do it. And they had 3 people try and attempt to pop our water. I'm like, can you just get someone in here who knows what they're doing, please? Because no one is filling me with confidence throughout this time. And so eventually someone did it. And then she started to dilate a little bit more. And then they were like, right, you're probably going to... I think she got to 10 centimeters, and they were like, we're going to have to push now. And she was pushing. I remember she was pushing for about an hour, thereabouts. And it's basically... Zach's got twisted in her birth canal, I think, and he was like coming down every time she pushed, but then going back up, coming down, going back up, coming back.
That must have been so frustrating for her, or for both.
Oh, massively. But she after she had this is a side effect of the epidural, huge shakes, but she was like shaking, like, I kid you not, like not just, oh, I'm cold. It is, her whole body was in shock like that. And also she couldn't feel anything from the bottom, like legs downwards, right? She couldn't feel anything at all. And the epidural helped lots, but it's risky because they can't feel, they lose a lot of that natural stuff. So he pushed for ages, and then we had to get someone else in, who basically said we've got to prep her for surgery because he's stuck, basically. I think he got twisted as he was coming out. So prepped her for surgery. I'm like, okay, I don't know what this means, but we're doing it. We're going. Took her into the surgery room, and they prepped her on the table. Everything. I mean, I've been into a surgery room before, but it's pretty daunting when it's your partner.
You were in the room,
lots
right?
of people around. Yeah, I was in the surgery room. I had to wear like a gown and everything like that. Wash my hands and whatever. And yeah, Sam's on the operation table, and they've basically had an episiotomy, right? So they've cut, but episiotomy is not as bad as what people sound. They basically cut into the bum cheek. So it's just like fatty tissue, but they do it to obviously allow the baby more headroom to come out. So again, something similar. I was at the top end. I was just comforting Sam throughout this whole process. And then I remember the baby coming out. And it's something that's quite funny because something that I've seen my brothers talk about and everyone else talk about. I cried like a baby. I cried like, it was the most beautiful thing. It was all this. And like during that process, I was like, you know what I'm like. I'm not an emotional guy at all, right? I'm not an emotional guy at all. I think with logic before emotion, and I'm
block of granite.
And I'm not the type of person that thinks, I'm tough. Don't get me wrong. I just put logic into every scenario and go, do I need to, if I react like this way, or is there better ways to react? Right? It's not the right thing to do a lot of the time, but I don't do it because I think I'm tough. I'm just not a very emotional person. But I was like, oh my God, here comes my baby. And it was like a rush of emotions and I was like, this is uncontrollable. I can't do anything. And my baby came out and they put her on Sam and you're like, oh my God, my baby's there. My baby's there. And they put her on her for like a second and took him away. And took him into the corner of the room. And I'm looking at the midwives, and the midwives are looking at each other like, and I went, hold on a minute, what's going on? Why do my midwives look scared? Why are they looking at each other like that? And one of them put her hands over her mouth like that. And I was like, okay, something's happening here. And imagine this emotion just going, and then just going, donk, like a gate closing, right? And my body, it's the weirdest thing I've ever experienced in my life. Sorry, I'm trying to talk but not get choked up. Weirdest thing I've ever experienced in my life, where it's like, if I was to say, like your full mammal instinct, like, I don't know what it is, right? But imagine being like vulnerable and all this, and then like being everything going on pause. And you going, right, I need to... just said I'm not an emotional person. And then like a gate just shutting on everything that you're feeling at that moment. I remember looking at her going, right, this is happening. I've got to be there for her if anything goes wrong. And little did I know, fucking they hit a buzzer and a fucking 15 people rushed in and our son's in the corner. They're all surrounding him. And I'm like, holy shit. And Sam's out of it a little bit, but she's aware of what's going on. It's like, it's fine, Sam. It's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine. It's going to be all right. And I'm still looking at these midwives, looking at her, looking at these midwives, and they don't know what to do. Don't know what to do. And I'm like, hold on a minute. Can someone just please be transparent with me? I don't know what's going on. And they eventually, in the corner, there's like a little thing, like a little cubicle sort of thing. And they had to hook him up with oxygen, put tubes in his lungs. And they were not operating on him, but like putting tubes up his nose, down his lungs, and pumping oxygen into him to get him to breathe. And they got him stabilized. And they basically, again, this is going to sound really harsh. And I think about this all the time. And it's such a horrible thing. And I don't want people to judge me because of it. Is they basically, we didn't get Ed to spend any more time with him. That was it. It was 1 second on him. They put him into this thing. They sorted him out, rushed the emergency team, and took him out. And they said, do you want to say goodbye to him? I said, I don't even know what's going on. They said, we need to take him to the intensive care unit and get him hooked up to the machines and stuff. But someone said, look, we need to go now. So do you want to say goodbye to him? I said, Sam put her hand through like a little circle in this box because it was covered. She put her hand through this box and touched him. And I just remember turning around to the doctors and saying, no, you just bring him back to me. I'll say hello to him when he's back here and safe. Like once you've fixed him, bring him back to me. because I knew that if I said anything to him or touched him in that moment, I knew that if I did anything in that moment, I would have just like it would have destroyed me. You know what I mean? And I basically said, no, just get him out of here now and fix him while you can. And that was it. He went out. Sam was still on the table. They had to still operate on her, so they had to sew her back up and stuff. She then went into recovery. I went home. I went straight home because I'd been awake for 34 hours and I was no use to anyone at that stage. She needed sleep, so she had to go to sleep. Our son was in the intensive care unit, and I went home and passed out on my bed. And then I got set my alarm for like 7 o'clock in the morning or something. Went to the hospital, like very much like you. Went home. I didn't cry. I just went home. I was like, I don't know whether my son's okay. I don't know how Sam is doing. I don't know any of this. I'm just at home on my own in a solitary confinement that feels like it, with all these things going around in my head. And then I set my alarm for 7, woke up, went back to the hospital. So they asked Sam multiple times if he wanted to go see him. She said no, not without me. So I got there first thing in the morning. They went to see him, and I might be able to sort of show a picture or something like that within the editing. But he was hooked up to like machines and had cannulas in and up his nose, down his throat, and it was like a horrible thing. But he was stable, and to be fair, he looked so much different that one day. And obviously, of course, he's going to look, because babies always do, they change really quickly. But for me, it was like reassuring because he came out blue and everything, not breathing. And then he was okay. And they basically said, I think they took him from 100%, where the machine was breathing for him, from 100% down to 75 or 50. So they basically said, look, his lungs are trying to breathe. We need to give his lungs the option to start breathing by himself, to make sure that his lungs develop as normal. So that was it. That was it with him. He is healthy, fine. He's got a couple of lung issues now. He basically had pneumonia in both his lungs when he was born. They don't know what caused it. There was no traction. As I said, Sam had the most perfect birth. They're basically not entirely sure what caused it or what happened. But going back to the point of, I wish someone prepped me to some degree and gave me the confidence that if shit hits the fan, you've got people around you. There are doctors and nurses who know what they're doing, not people who look like they're scared, not midwives who are panic. You can see panic on your I was like, how many babies do they deliver? In my head, I was like, how many babies do you deliver? You know when something is bad. And they had fear in their eyes. And I remember thinking that you're giving everything away. And they didn't even look. They didn't even like. Eventually, at one stage, once they stabilized it, the head midwife came around and like looked after Sam, because we had two. We had a trainee midwife and like a head midwife or something. And yeah, bit of a downer that story, mate. But Ivy's birth was much better. Sam was induced again. It was 3 days in the hospital, but the birth was pretty straightforward. There was no complications. And yeah, there was no epidural, no nothing. Pretty straightforward, good birth. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was clearly hard for you to go into that level of detail, and we have never discussed that to that level of detail before. And I've never seen you like that. Like, you know, and this is exactly why we wanted to do this podcast, right? So we can try and get people to talk to each other at this level, because it's hard, man. It's hard, and you know that's a serious experience to go through for both of you, right? And it proves, like, just between the two births, that Ivy was sound as a pound, and I think there is like a lot of stats that around, you know, the second births typically are better than the first, or at least you sort of know more what you're getting into, etc. But no, like, and again, this whole thing isn't to scare anyone. It's just to say that this is a very real reality of what could happen. And again, like you, and maybe some people would rather not know. Maybe some people would rather live in willful ignorance and say that let's just go into everything's going to be fine, positive thoughts, yeah. I am more of the mindset of I would rather know everything that could happen just in case it
Prepare.
does, so I can mentally prepare.
I hate being in that situation because I again, like with my work and everything, right? My whole life, I live by structure. I think structure is important for anyone. I think it's an important thing to build, like a skill that people should have and be able to use it well. I like to structure my life in pretty much every aspect. I hate going into a situation where I know that if this happens, what do I do now? I don't like being in that in the dark in that situation. I don't know if shit hits the fan, this is what's going to happen, right? This is what's going to happen. So I can then say, Sam, this is what's happening. You know, all of this stuff. I don't want to have to just go into the dark and say, right, I'm useless now. I'm as useless as I don't know, something that's not very useful.
An inflatable dartboard.
Even that has more uses.
And like again, like those are two very different stories. Like I think Shah's active labour was an hour and 15 minutes. Like so, it's like compared to Sam's 37, you'd look at him face value and go, "Oh, that wasn't too bad." But like basically compress all that 37 into an hour. Like it's just all different perspectives. And again, as I said, I don't know anyone's like apart from seemingly Ivy's where there isn't some level of this went on for a very long time or this happened and we had to have a cesarean or we had to do this. And it's like again, I did NCT for throughout and none of that was even discussed. It wasn't even mentioned that this could genuinely happen or this sort of thing could happen. It'll just massage her lower back and put her on the TENS machine and sing lullabies and all this stuff. And like I remember we put the TENS machine on Charlotte and she was like, is it even on? I'm like, yes, it's maxed out. And she's like, I cannot feel anything. And like obviously I'm not saying that's what it's like for everyone, but like the no amount of loving oils and soothing music is gonna stop that. So
but I mean, as you rightly said, like there's a reason why people do it, and they try to. It's a scary thing, and it's definitely scary, way more scary for the women, right? Going through the process of giving birth. There's no doubt about it. It is a scary thing, and God fucking bless those people that go through that process, right? Hands up to say, I don't know how they come out the other side and go, yeah, fine, I'll do that again. Because Sam did eventually. It was like, yeah, we're going to do this again. I'm sure Charlotte will at some stage, and I'm sure other people do it as well. But it's just credit to those people that go through it. And I understand that they don't want to get scared of going into birth. But from a man's perspective, I always think it's like, or the partner's position. It's I think telling guys that here's a reality that if shit hits the fan, here's what you can do to help. I think that is because. The woman can't do anything. She's vulnerable. She's giving birth. That's all she needs to focus on is getting that child out. The man, yes, you'd be there for moral support. Yes, you can hold her hand, but you need to sort of be in the know to some degree if things don't go well.
Yeah, for sure. And it gave me again, just such a as if I didn't respect and love her enough already. Like just looking at your partner in that state and then pushing through it, seeing her on the other side, like. Just like I couldn't love her anymore. And again, I know your midwife experience wasn't the best, but I couldn't fault the midwives where we were. They were genuinely brilliant, and the care afterwards, the care before, the care during. Like Janet, and Charlotte's cousin's a midwife, and she she sees stuff like this every day, and she sounds like an absolute hero. So, although
she get her on the podcast, mate.
I should. She can come on and correct us with all our misinformation.
To be fair, we'll get Sam on, we'll get Charlotte on, and they'll just tell everyone that we're a bunch of idiots that don't know what to talk about, and none of it happened.
It's like, Sid, you weren't even there. You just made it all up.
Sid, you don't even have a child. You fabricate. No, this isn't even your house. Get out.
No, do you know what it does? Like, joking aside, I mean, it sort of is a joke. Now Charlotte has gone through childbirth, and I imagine it's the same for a lot of blokes out there. I now can seemingly never complain about pain ever again. Like, I stub my toe and I go, oh, that hurt. Well, it's not childbirth, is it? It's like, oh, I cut my hand off. Oh, well, it's not childbirth, is it? Like, there's nothing I can do to justify the amount of pain I'm in at any stage because it wasn't as bad as childbirth.
I think statistically, and again, I don't know.
Here we go again.
If you get kidney stones, you can complain, I think.
Okay.
because kidney stones are apparently as painful, more painful than childbirth. But
Wow.
we'll leave that in.
We're
for
going to
people
get the
angry at.
blowback on that statement is going to be immense. Like, you're,
I've had both, and I can promise you. Yeah.
oh dear. Well,
Whatever.
I guess that's that. Wow.
Do you want to wrap it up?
Let's
Steve?
wrap it up. Excellent work. Thanks for sharing that.
And you, likewise, mate. Likewise.
Wow.
It's a shame I didn't hit record.
Oh, can you imagine? Can you imagine if you didn't record that? Can I leave you to do a lovely outro?
Yes. I just want to say thank you very much for listening and being a part of this story. There will be more stories to come. We've got a whole load of subject matters to talk through. And we just hope that you can stay around for the journey and listen and share your thoughts on the stories. That was a terrible outro. I should just cut it there and redo it.
I still liked it. Like I was on tenterhooks. I mean, you didn't manage to cram like, comment, or subscribe in there, which is the kind of cliched outro. But I think people get that.
Well, you just done it now, haven't you? So
make sure you like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Thanks.